All right, welcome back to another episode of Keys of Currency, where we interview high-level entrepreneurs doing high-level things. Today, I got another dope entrepreneur for you guys. I got somebody who is killing in the real estate world. He is helping people develop a powerful mindset. I got my guy, Mr. Marlon Johnson. What's up, Marlon?
What's going on, bro? How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm glad to have you on here, bro. So, got to ask you, man. I know you're a sub-2 leader. We're both in the sub-2 community.
Yep.
I've been seeing the impact you've been making, right? But before we get into all that, what got you into entrepreneurship?
Man, that's a good question. All right, so Justin, check this out. I used to do a sport called parkour.
Okay.
And when I was doing this sport, I was having the time of my life. I was working as an athlete, I was working as a coach, and I coached over 1,000 students. I had the great fortune of,
1,000.
yeah, a lot. I did it for about 9 years, actually. And so what ended up happening, it's funny how I even got into coaching. Just a quick little backstory of that. I found out about this thing called parkour on YouTube, get into it, want to start learning how to do flips. Obviously, trying to learn how to flip on cement's a little scary. So I find a local gymnastics gym near home, and I go pay $20 to get in for an hour. I'm like, man, this is amazing. But I'm also like 19 years old. I don't have any money. Paying $20 every time I want to go inside and flip, it's getting expensive. So I ask them, hey, can I come work here? They're like, hey, can you coach? I'm like, yeah, of course I could coach. Yeah. I never coached anything in my life, but I just wanted to get inside the room. So I start coaching, and I take on this position of being this young adult coach for these kids that were anywhere from the age of 5 up to 18 years old. And so what starts to happen is I'm spending a lot of time with them, right? They're with me year after year. Like I said, I did this for 9 years. They're with me year after year. I'm watching them grow. I'm watching them get older. And I don't like to do fluff conversation. So whenever I would have time with them, I'd ask them, like, what do you want to be when you get older? What do you want to do with yourself? What do you want to do with your life? Number one answer I'd always get, I want to be a parkour coach. I want to be a parkour athlete. And I'm like, yeah. Man, I don't know if I could curse, but I was like, shoot.
Podcast, bro.
All right, I'm like, shit, I'm ruining these kids. Like, I'm thinking I'm ruining them because I'm starting to become a young adult, 24 now at this time, and I'm thinking about where I want to go with my future. I'm thinking about wanting to start a family, wanting to be able to travel. All this stuff costs money. As much as I love my job, as much as I love this sport, there was no money in the industry. So this put me in a really weird predicament because now these kids, I'm like a mentor to them. I'm understanding the only reason they're saying they want to be a parkour coach or an athlete is simply because I was showing up to work every day happy, like genuinely happy.
So they're feeding off your energy.
They're feeding off the energy, and they don't realize that. So they think my energy is coming from parkour. No, I chose to be happy, right? I've made up a decision, but I'm financially unstable. I'm broke. I'm making about $20,000 a year. I'm living at home with my mom and my sister. It's just, and I'm dating a woman at the time who had 2 kids, and I'm like feeling like kind of like a loser. I can't even like support, like the relationship I'm in, let alone myself. And I realized, okay, I need to go and find a better way. If I'm going to be a mentor to these kids, if I'm going to be a role model, if they're going to look up to me and follow me somewhere, I can't lead them into the middle of the desert without knowing where the oasis is. So I made up my mind that I was going to go find something out there. And it was important for me that I learn how to make money without sacrificing the ability to serve people, without sacrificing my own inner joy. I didn't want to feel like I was selling my soul to make that money. So that's where this whole entrepreneurial journey began and the search began. And I wish I could say I was smart enough to find real estate as the first get-go, but I mean, I tried a bunch of things. In fact, the first entrepreneurial endeavor that I tried as like a young adult was opening up my own parkour gym out of a CrossFit space. And that worked well. I had to have been maybe like 22 or 23 when I did that first one.
Okay.
And it started to work out pretty well. I just started to run into all the traditional challenges of a business owner, right? Finding good employees, learning that, oh my gosh, I need to go out and market and continue to build my customer base, figuring out bookkeeping, paying rent, having overhead, things of that nature. So it was great. However, I was still running into that same struggle of, it wasn't a very scalable model, or at least I didn't understand yet how to scale it. So I wanted to pull back because I still wanted more passive income as well. I wanted to be able to free up my time. The only way I knew how to increase my earnings was to put more of myself into something. And if I wasn't there, I was struggling to find the thing that would continue to work without me. Although I will say one of the coolest feelings I had was the very first time I hired my first coach, and he worked while I was away at a conference. All right, so Saturday morning, he's in the gym, he's working, he's running the class. I had my mom, I hired her to go work the front desk, to check people in, to collect the money, to unlock the door, to lock it back, to do everything that I normally did. And it's my first time letting go and trusting. And I remembered like hearing my phone vibrate as money went into my account. And I was like, holy crap, I just successfully did it for the first time. Like I officially cloned myself for the very first time. And I couldn't have made more than like $100, but it was proof of concept. It was proof that, okay, this entrepreneur stuff that they talk about is true. Making money in your sleep, in essence, or making money in two places at once is true. So after that, I started to pursue different things. I looked into stocks. I was trading options for a little bit. That was fun. It was actually pretty good. I was making money. It just didn't feed the human interaction component that I crave. And, I searched for some more, and eventually I landed on real estate. I came across a YouTube video, Max Maxwell, if you've heard of him, wholesaling.
That's who got me started, bro.
Yeah, man. I mean, he was so personable. He was so real. He was showing the process. And I never even heard of wholesaling. I didn't even think there was anything outside of real estate besides being a real estate agent.
What year did you discover him?
Man, it had to have been 2019. It had to have been early 2019.
I found him in 2018. He was the reason I got started.
Yeah?
He was one of the only ones that was out there being transparent, letting people know like how to get started through wholesaling real estate. So
Yeah.
a lot of us started, bro.
I think he popularized like just wholesaling. I think he made it mainstream. And to that, like, I think many of us owe a debt of gratitude.
Yeah.
He really did just kind of bring that to the space. At least he was the first one that put it on my attention, on my radar, and kind of made me realize even YouTube was a place to learn how to become a business owner.
University, bro.
Yeah.
So you pretty much got a lot of your experience through actually doing. You didn't have a mentor when you started your journey, right?
So here's the interesting part. All right, so check this out. That same woman I was dating, right? The one that I told you that had the 2 kids, a part of like the helpful reason of me feeling like a loser. Real talk, I should have felt like a loser because I was like, hey, look, like I was still living at home. I'm still being supported by my mom. Like it's, I'm not tapping into my potential because life is still comfortable enough. It wasn't hurting enough. So when I start telling her, I'm getting excited about like this wholesaling real estate stuff, and I'm following this guy on YouTube, and he's teaching you how to wholesale properties, how to do it with no money. She's saying, oh, like, be careful. Can you trust this guy? He's on YouTube. Like, you never met him. How do you know what he's saying is real? How do you know any of this is real? And I'm like, well, it looks pretty real. It feels real. But she started to put like a little bit of that doubt in my head. Not in a negative way. She really was just looking out for my best interest. We're New Yorkers. We're skeptical of everything. So she says, look, there's a conference coming up this weekend. It's a Robert Kiyosaki conference, right? One of those free real estate seminars at a Marriott hotel. She's like, let's go to it. It's like a one-night thing. It's free. They'll teach us. Like, this is a legitimate company. Let's go check them out. I'm like, okay, like, I'm just hungry to learn. We go to this one-night free seminar. And the speaker at the front of the room, never going to forget his name, James Smith. He's just spitting about real estate, just saying things I never heard of. Not only is he talking about wholesale, but he's talking about lease options. He's talking about seller financing. He's talking about wraparound mortgages, all this stuff that I'm intelligent enough to be able to follow the conversation. But I'm also like, why have I never heard of any of this? So he then begins to show me that there was so much I didn't know. And when I realized all that, at the end of it, of course, there's a sale. Hey, $500, go to a 3-day workshop coming up in 2 weekends. So at that point, I'm like, screw it. I'm in. Like, I never really invested my money before. Like, this is now like my first time investing my money into my own personal self-education. At college, I went on scholarship and like my parents helped me pay for, but this is the first thing outside of the normal, right? Outside of your traditional high school, college, go to school, like work. And so I'm like hesitant, but you know what? This guy just blew my mind tonight. He said things that no one's ever said. If I want a different sort of life, I got to go and get different information. I pay for this 3-day class and I go, and again, like another 3 days of my mind just being melted, just information upon information from Robert Kiyosaki's team. Like Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he started a company called Elite Legacy that was teaching real estate at a high level. So I'm learning. And of course, at the end of those 3 days, you get a lot of information, but you also get the upsell in the back of the room. Now, now I know the game now. I know the game. But back then, this is my first time in the room. So, I mean, I got sticker shock when I saw the upsell. I was like,
Like 50K?
that was one of the packages. One of the packages. So,
Tens from there.
I mean, Justin, at the end of that weekend, I spent $25,000. $25,000 that I did not have. And I want to emphasize this because in my bank account at that time, $3,000, that was my net worth, $3,000 in the bank account. I had $3,000 on my credit card. That's like a limit. And I was debt free, so I was safe to say that. But so essentially, my net worth was $6,000, and I was making a whopping about $20,000 a year. However, I heard enough to know that I needed to learn more. I needed to be around different people that were doing things at a higher level. And if I wanted something to change, I needed to invest in myself. So that decision that weekend to pay for that education is actually the reason I'm here today. It's the reason I was able to create any sort of success inside of real estate, is because every time I thought about quitting, and there were plenty of times I thought about quitting because it's work. The reason I didn't was because I had 25,000 reasons not to. Right, I was not comfortable letting my story at the dinner parties be, yeah, that one time when I was like, in my 20s, I invested $25,000 into real estate and never did anything with it. I wasn't comfortable letting that be the story. So whenever I got frustrated, whenever I felt like stopping and quitting, I thought about the money I spent, and I also thought about the fact that I walked away from my passion job of being a parkour coach to go prove to these kids that it's possible to earn money and still love what you do and still provide value to people and still go out and create true win-win situations. I mean, I can get into like just the depth of like how messed up my mindset was when it came to money and wealth and like thinking that rich people were all bad. And so when I finally learned in real estate that you make money not by ripping people off, but by serving them and solving problems, I felt like I found the holy grail. I felt like I found the oasis in the middle of the desert. It was like finally somebody is saying the thing that I've been trying to create my whole life. And not only are they telling me it's possible, they're telling me it's already been done and it's being done every single day. I just don't see it because I'm looking in the wrong places.
So, interesting background, interesting story, right? Started at a very young age. Now, your name's Mindset Martin, social media. So, clearly you're into the whole mindset. How do we get to that point to build the mindset up to where it's at today?
Yeah, great question. So, funny enough, now this actually comes before even stepping into the entrepreneurship, and I'm grateful for this. So I'm actually going to take people, because when I started getting into real estate, this is October of 2019. That's when I sat in that ballroom. The reason I remember it is because you remember when you spend way more money than you have. Like, you remember getting yourself that deep into debt. So people are always like, man, you remember like down to the date? I'm like, I remember everything when it came to that moment. So what got my mindset to the place where I was even able to take on that sort of risk, because my family, very conservative people. I'm the son of Caribbean parents, Dave Ramsey loving Caribbean parents, like they would disown me right now if they found out that we pay a landscaper to come to the house and take care of work that I'm perfectly capable of taking care of myself. So, it's just different mindsets, different worlds. And when I was back in high school, what was interesting was I was friendly with people, but I also was kind of like an introvert. I was quiet. I was shut in. And in the mornings, I'd be very like shut in to myself. In the afternoons, I'd eat some lunch. I'm a little bit more open. I'm talkative to people. And so people would see my mood do this, like this, these sways. I'm not thinking much of it, right? Until graduation comes. And you know high school superlatives, like most likely to succeed, most likely to do this. My classmates gave me a superlative. It was moodiest.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And like they were my friends. Like no one was like throwing any shade or anything. But that's what it says. Like that's in my yearbook, right? Marlon Johnson, moodiest. And like not for nothing, I'm sitting there looking at it and like I'm not mad, but I'm just like, man, like my parents are gonna see this. Like anyone I show my yearbook, they're gonna always ask like, what's up with this? Like you're moody, you're the moody guy. That's how my classmates see me. That's how my friends see me, as that moody guy. And I just didn't want that for myself. I didn't want to be known as the moody person. So when I graduate high school and I'm going to college, I'm going to my local community college. Everyone else is going away to colleges. No one knows me at college that I'm about to go to. I remembered thinking, I want to reinvent myself. I don't want to be the moody person anymore. I don't want to have mood swings. I don't want to have bad days. Can I just do that? Like everyone always says TV's brainwashing you. So I had this legitimate conversation going on in my head. Can I just brainwash myself? Can I just brainwash myself to be a happy person? You know what? Screw it. Let's do this. I'm going to do this. So I come up with this experiment of I'm just going to brainwash myself to be happy. And my middle name's Ashton. So going into college, I say I'm going to go by Ashton instead, like as a form of a new identity, as a happier person. I'm not going to be Marlon. I'm going to be Ashton. Great. Day one, college. I'm in there, right? So walking around the hallway, smiling, happy. And immediately as I walk into my class, I'm smiling. So someone says, hi, like, hey, what's going on? What's your name? Marlon. Oh, shit. All right, so I realized it was going to be hard to change my name. So I kept using my name, Marlon. But I decided I'm still just going to be a happy person. Check this out. About 3 months go by. I'm not thinking about it too much. One day I'm walking through campus. The thought occurs. Dude, you haven't had a bad day since you graduated high school. Not a bad day at all. And I'm asking myself, when's the last time you were pissed off? Hasn't happened. And it wasn't that bad things weren't happening. I just was choosing to no longer be bothered by it, to be affected by it. So I realized, wait a second, when did the change occur? I don't even remember. I remembered having the thought and starting the brainwashing experiment, but I don't remember when that switch happened. But I clearly had changed. I'm no longer the same person. In fact, when I would go see old friends, they would even say hey, oh, you're not moody anymore, right? So I began to get so curious with why I changed, and I started reading books like Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and that book, I felt like, holy crap, it explained everything. It explained all of it, and I was like, this is it. This is this mindset stuff. If you change in here, everything else changes. Everything. So since then, and this has been close to a decade now, because that was when I was about 19 years old, I've been studying personal development, mindset ever since. In fact, I've even gone on to do high performance coaching. I've had a high performance coach. I now do high performance coaching with other entrepreneurs, and it's I just love it. And I realize how many people are missing it. I've met people who figured out how to make money, but they're still miserable on the inside because they haven't quite figured out how to shift the internal identity.
So who's been the biggest influence on your mindset?
Oh, I would have
Who have you studied? Because we all look up to somebody, right?
Yep.
We all have that person or that book that teaches us and kind of triggers something in our brain and just kind of changes the trajectory. Was it a book that changed that for you? Was it a mentor? Was it a coach? What was the foundational, pivotal thing for you? Flip that switch and got your mindset on the right path.
Yeah. So first, it was that social experiment I did on myself, that brainwashing experiment. From there, the first person I ever worked for, not the first person, but the first mentor who ever kind of presented himself in my life as a mentor, was the one that recommended I read Think and Grow Rich. So I run out to Barnes & Noble that Saturday, grab that book, start going through it. And I wasn't even much of a reader back then. Now I devour as many books as I possibly could get my hand on. Napoleon Hill absolutely just helped to continue to rewire this, right? That's what turned me into a professional parkour athlete, because after becoming happy. It was, can I be a professional parkour athlete? I didn't start parkour till I was, almost 20 years old. These other kids are starting when they're like 7, right? But I became a professional before I left my parkour career because I realized, hey, you work on changing your mind, everything else will follow. From there, a person that I studied, I'll give 2. Tony Robbins, love the man. Like I truly, we're here at an event and Carl Allen was talking about how he's been devouring Tony Robbins material for a long time. And another individual, Bob Proctor, who recently passed about a little over a year ago. However, Bob Proctor, I would say, is one of the individuals that really, I can almost like quote his stuff. I've reviewed his material so much so that I want to carry on that torch. And I feel that that's what he wanted us to do, to continue to pass that information on, because the information he brought to the world wasn't his own. And I feel the same way, like, hey, this information is meant for all of us to share in. So I find so much joy nowadays in when people come to me, I'm able to share this information. I go on my social media and I talk about mindset more than anything else. It's ultimately, like, I think everything starts and finishes up here.
So mindset is the biggest obstacle that pretty much stops us from having success, whatever it is we're trying to achieve, whether it's health and fitness, entrepreneurship, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Mindset is that.
I would say it starts there, right? Because how many times have you seen an individual where maybe they're in one of your mentorship programs, maybe they're in the same community that you're in, they have access to all the same resources, they're in the same locality, they're in the same market, they have the same tools, they start at the same time, and yet you're able to produce the result and they don't produce the result. And they might even say, I'm doing the same thing, I'm taking the same actions, I'm making the same amount of calls, I'm sending the same amount of text messages. What's the difference? I would argue to say that the difference is the mindset. The difference is the frequency in which that person is resonating in, the vibration that they're on, right? Because that's ultimately attracting to them the opportunities, right? It's not the what they're doing, it's the how they're doing it. It's the who that's doing it, more importantly. And I've experienced this in my own personal life. Let me take you back one more time. I know we jump around in time here for a second, but let me take you back here. When
The audience some game, bro.
Awesome. So hopefully y'all are enjoying this right now because it's a true story. When I was first getting into parkour, before I got into parkour, let me correct that. I found out about these guys that did a lot of calisthenic workouts. I saw a muscle up for the very first time. I was like, whoa, what was that? That dude just did a pull-up so dang hard. He like pulled himself over the bar. I want to do that. Like, I want to be able to do that. So that was like my first fitness goal, if you will, to just be able to pull myself up and over the bar. So I start to pull myself up and over the bar, and I wanted to learn how to do a handstand. So I start to learn how to do a handstand, and I've always been a really skinny guy, and I would get made fun of a little bit for that. So I had a little bit of an insecurity. So I was like, you know what? Along with these skills, I want to get like bigger. Like, I want to fill out a t-shirt for the first time in my life. I want to have like a bigger chest, like all that kind of stuff, just to make me feel a little bit more manly, right? So I start working out like crazy, like in my, like as high school's ending and all that stuff, to be able to boost my confidence, put on some size, and I'm lifting like heavy. I'm eating all the time, and I'm imagining myself getting bigger. I'm looking at myself in the mirror when I would get a pump. I'm reading books about, or looking at pictures of Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? Like I got the posters. I'm like just constantly like looking at pictures of like people that are bodybuilders, and I'm just getting this image in my mind. Now, I don't really realize what I'm doing. I'm just obsessed with trying to get bigger. I'm just looking at bodybuilders trying to get bigger. What starts to happen is I start to put on weight. I start to put on size. I start to get up to about 180 pounds. I'm filling out shirts. My arms look bigger, all of that stuff. And eventually it gets boring to me. It's like, all right, cool. Like, what can you do? Like, go lift more weights in the gym. And I stumble into the parkour on YouTube. That's more interesting. This is where it gets interesting. With the beginning parkour, you still need strength in your body to jump, to flip, to climb, to do all that stuff. So I'm still working out. But now when I'm looking at YouTube videos of other parkour athletes, they're skinny guys, right? They're nimble, they're agile, they're not big and bulky. So I'm still working out just as consistently, still eating just as much. If anything, I'm eating more food because I'm burning even more calories. But my body getting slimmer and slimmer and slimmer and slimmer. It's starting to morph and change and begin to look like the parkour athletes I've been watching. And one day it occurs to me, as I'm benching more weight than I've ever benched before. I'm getting stronger than I've ever been. I'm looking in the mirror and I'm like, I'm smaller than when my goal was to be the bigger guy. Internally, I was no longer holding on to the image of being the big guy, of having the big muscles, of being swole, right? I wanted to be this parkour athlete. My body was responding and adapting and changing to the image I was holding in my mind. So now to bring it full circle, sometimes we have these people that they want to get into entrepreneurship. They buy the courses. They've got the tools. They've got the lists. They got all of it. However, internally, they still see themselves as like, man, but like, I don't think it's going to work for me. You know, I'm still just, I grew up middle class. I don't know if I deserve to be rich. I know it works, but I'm not the one. Like inside, they still have internal doubt. They still see themselves as the person that they've been this whole time. So although their goal is up here, their dream is up here, their self-identity is down here. And until this comes here, they will not attain. They won't be in frequency and resonance with the good that they desire. This is a mindset, right? Wealth is a mindset. Success is a mindset. However, until this changes, this goal will forever be out there in the distance.
So you believe anything in the world is achievable and attainable?
Absolutely.
As long as you have the right mindset?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Physically, mentally?
See, what happens is I think people think, I like to use this analogy. Check this out, right? Let's imagine that, you know, you and I are sitting in this room and I'm like, yo, Justin, yo, do you hear the music? Like, and you might be listening around for it, like, all right, Marlon probably didn't take his meds this morning. And it's just like, I'm like, no, Justin, like, bro, listen, like, you got to be real quiet. Hear the music, bro. And you're still like, I don't hear it. And then I say, all right, you know what, let me help. I pull out the boom box. I put the boom box down on the table. I turn the power on, and I start to twist the dial. And as I turn the dial, you start to hear the pianos. You start to hear the classical music. And I'm like, yo, bro, see the music, right? It's in the air. It's been in the room the whole time. Now, did I just invite the music into the room in that moment, or was it already there? We just now had something that could tune into the frequency, right? Because if I turn the knob again, now we hear the rap. If I turn it again, now we hear the rock. So what's interesting is people can start to understand that bit of it. Now, recognizing if they want to get onto their goal and haven't achieved their goal, they need to be able to visualize it. They need to be able to get themselves into their frequency. When they start to think about the thing they want and they start to visualize it and they start to feel it, they're getting in resonance with that good. It's like the radio station being turned and the radio being turned on. Now, if your goal is to learn all the lyrics of the song that's playing on the radio, right? And let's say it's a 10-minute long song and you tune into that frequency for 20 seconds. Are you going to be able to capture the entire 10-minute long song to learn the lyrics? No. But people are doing that with their goals. They're tuning into the station for a short amount of time and then they're saying, but it doesn't work, man. I tried the visualization thing. I tried the meditation. They didn't stay in there long enough. It's a law of gestation, right? It's like me saying, I got my girlfriend pregnant last week, right? But the baby's not here, man. I don't know what's going on. Is everything all right? I think she's broken. She's broke. I got to go get a new girl, right? I got to go switch it up. No. Whoa, slow it down, homie. A seed, that baby, it's going to take about 9 months to make, right? She's got to stay pregnant for the entire 9 months. We've got to stay in tune with the good that we desire long enough for it to manifest, for it to come into being, for it to come into existence. That plant needs to be watered and taken care of. That's a mindset thing. It is absolutely a mindset thing. And unfortunately, people don't put the time, energy, and effort into it. In fact, it was Andrew Carnegie who had asked Napoleon Hill to write the book, Think and Grow Rich, to go out and to interview all of the 500 wealthiest people in the world and put together this manual, because Carnegie was under the belief, he said, unfortunately, schools teach people how to go and just hold useless knowledge in their head. It teaches a person nothing about themselves. He says, if we can start to teach people about themselves, he says, I think we can cut education, the time that people need in education, down by half. Because then when they understand this about themselves, and he knew, because he was a poor Scottish kid, he came to to the country with nothing, literally nothing. And before he died, he was he was the wealthiest man at his time. During his lifetime, he was the wealthiest man in the world. And he said, what I did can be done by anybody else, but only if they understand these principles. They need to understand the principles. You have to learn how to work on yourself. So do I believe it's a mindset thing? Absolutely. 1,000%. There is no doubt in my mind.
What is your mind allows you to achieve, man? Because I know you from real estate.
Yep.
What else have you been able to achieve in life? How old are you?
I'm 29 now.
29, bro. What else have you been able to achieve in your 29 years of living?
Yeah.
Because once you really worked on your mindset and understood how powerful it is and where it could take you, I would imagine you're no longer scared to go out there, try new things, take chances, take risks, right? Obviously calculate risk.
Yep.
But what have you been able to accomplish?
Yeah.
Ever since you really just kind of bulletproof your mindset?
100%. And I'll say one thing real quick. I still do get scared. I get scared all the time. However, I've learned to use courage. And courage can't exist without being scared. And I think if something's not scaring you, then it's not big enough for you. You should be doing something else, because we're constantly going to another level. So in my 29 years, and keeping in mind, it's been a progression, right? I'm still learning things about myself. And this is why I get so excited. I've been able to go and acquire, I think I was telling you a little earlier, 25 doors with none of my own money. So I've been able to purchase real estate, which I thought was kind of going to be I had a lot of imposter syndrome even after having purchased that Robert Kiyosaki course, right? I struggled to get my first deal. It took me 8 months to get my first deal because I was like that person I just described. I was the person that had the resources but wasn't producing the result because internally I kept feeling like I was an imposter. I wasn't a real estate investor. I felt like I was lying every time I picked up the phone and made a phone call. So it took me so long to get that first deal done. And then as I started to work through those limiting beliefs and start to believe in myself, I was able to start wholesaling. Then I started to believe in myself some more. And I was like, hey, why am I selling these? Everyone keeps telling me you find a deal, the money will come. That's another belief. But I didn't believe it for me. I knew it was true. I just didn't know it was true for me. So when I finally convinced myself that that was the truth, I was going to make it the truth, that, I'm holding on to this deal. The first deal I decided to buy, I had no clue where the money was coming from. I had no idea. But like they said, the money did show up, right? Because I had this belief. So I continued to use that. I amassed a portfolio of 25 doors up in the Midwest. Actually just closed on another property 2 months back in Phoenix, Arizona, $1 million property, no money out of pocket. No money.
This is after working on your mindset and believing in yourself and understanding how powerful the mind is.
Well, check this one out. Because the house that I currently have in Arizona that we closed on, that $1 million property, I literally call it the manifestation house. So it's called the Mindset Manor. It's actually really cool. People will see I have a whole thing on YouTube about it. I call it the Mindset Manor to the public, but internally I call it the manifestation house. Because what happened was, it was 2 months before the end of the year of 2022. And I was rooming with my buddy Luciano. He's another guy in our Sub 2 mentorship. Great real estate investor, awesome dude. And I just had a friend call me and she says, hey, I got a lease over in Scottsdale. Me and my husband, we're having a new baby. We need a bigger place. We're going to get out of it. We don't want to cancel the lease early. Do you know anyone that would want to take it over? I was like, maybe I might take it over. It's a nice apartment, new pool, new complex. But I was like, you know what? Forget it. I'm going to pass it on to another friend. I like living with Luciano. I come home a week later, or a few days later, I tell Luciano about the same night. A few days later, Luciano's like, hey, I want to talk to you. I'm like, hey, what's going on, man? Hey, me and Devin, his girlfriend, we're moving. We're going to Lake Tahoe. We're turning the house into an Airbnb. Sorry, man, you're going to have to find a new place to stay. I'm like, bro, why didn't you tell me this a few nights ago when I told you about that lease that I just passed on to our buddy Daryl? That was a great lease. But whatever. So now I'm in a place where I'm like, all right, I got about a month and a half left in the year. I need to find a place because they're leaving in January. And I'm like, you know what? Instead of renting a place, I just want to buy a house, right? And I always write. I have a journal I keep. Whenever I talk about my dream house, in the dream house, I always describe high ceilings, right? Like this house with high ceilings, all the bedrooms, just high ceilings, beautiful home, has a mountain view. Just like I describe all this stuff about this house. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go buy a house. And I'm an entrepreneur. Like, I don't report as much taxes as like, I'm savvy about my taxes. So I'm not bankable when it comes to buying $1 million house. Like, I don't qualify for $1 million house. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get this house. So Luciano's like, yeah, you're going to get a house? I'm like, yeah, bro. He's like, where's it going to come from? I'm like, I don't know. But Bob Proctor taught me that before you need to figure out the how, you need to figure out the what. What do you want? What do you want and why do you want it? So I got clear on the sort of house I wanted. I got clear on why I wanted it, because check this out. I wanted this house also to be a house where I like living with roommates. I never got that go away to college experience. So I liked having Luciano as a roommate. I liked that he was an entrepreneur. I wanted a house where I could live with other entrepreneurs and we could constantly mastermind. We could constantly sit around what I call the campfire and feel that energetic exchange that happens when we go to these meetups and we travel and we're around good people. I wanted to have that every single day for the sake of me growing as a person and me growing my business. So that was a part of this house. I'm like, man, this house is going to be the entrepreneur's growth house. Like, that's what this house is going to be. So this image is just in my mind. Now, I got no idea where this house is coming from. So now it's December. And Luciano's like, yo, you found a place yet? I'm like, no. He's like, well, you got to be out by January. I was like, don't worry, I'll be out by January. It's like, and he's not like pressing me, but he's just like concerned. He wants to make sure I'm in a good place. Like, me and him really like each other. And bro, I'm just like, look, the house is going to come. Like, the things I want always come. I just have faith. Like, when I can feel it and I can see it in my mind, I know it will come. So I call it aggressively patient, right? I'm not stressing over it, and I'm just patient. I take the action that needs to be taken, and I consider it a success as long as I'm moving in the right direction. So I'm just letting people know, hey, this is what I'm looking for. I got a realtor. She's looking for houses for me. I tell her, like, she's like, how are you going to finance it? I'm like, no worries. Like, we'll figure something out. Just, find the sort of house I'm looking for. So people are looking for the houses for me. Ingrid Hernandez calls me about a week into December, and she goes, yo, I got this house. We could take over the mortgage subject to. It's in pre-foreclosure. It's about $50,000 in arrear, but they got a VA loan on it, 2.75% interest rate. The only problem is, even if we catch it up, the mortgage payments are like $4,600 a month. And I'm like, okay. She's like, would this house work for you though? Like, with what you want to do with like the entrepreneurs? I'm like, yeah, Ingrid, like, let's check out the house. 6-bedroom, 4.5 bath, 4,700 square foot, hot tub, pool, 4-car garage, indoor gym upstairs. I mean, the house is just immaculate. I'm like, Ingrid, this is the house. This is it. Like, this is going to work perfectly. Like, are you kidding me? So we locked that deal up, like, closed on it. I'm living in that house right now. That house happened. I didn't add this part. I was telling Luciano, don't worry, bro. I'm going to get the house for Christmas.
It's a mansion?
Now, it feels like it to me. Like, I don't know if other people consider it a mansion, but like 4,700 square feet, that's a big house, bro. Yeah. Big house. So I consider it a mansion. So we call it the Mindset Manor, right? Yes. That's the name of it. And, I kept telling Luciano, I'm going to get it before Christmas. I'm going to get it before Christmas. I didn't get it before Christmas. I got it the day before New Year's. That's the day we closed on it. Close enough. Manifestation house, man.
So let me ask you this, man. I'm a big believer in mindset, and I had to change my own mindset, not too long ago, because I feel like I started to plateau as an entrepreneur once I hit a certain level. And I noticed like my mindset was really starting to get in the way of me achieving that next level. It wasn't in a good place, right? And so I found my own mindset coach, and that's when things really started to turn around for me, right? And when you have the right mindset, it can take you anywhere. But what is it that really, like, are we born with a bad mindset, a fucked up mindset? Like, do we just inherit all of the bad habits from our families? Like, why do we always have to constantly, as human beings, work on our mindset? Why aren't we just, born with a powerful mindset? Why is it society? What is it that gives us such a weak mindset to where we struggle as human beings?
Yeah, no, great question. So this is something that actually Bob Proctor talked about a bunch, which I resonated with. You know, you and I, for example, we speak English, right? Why? For no other reason besides, or at least I'm going to assume, I don't know your history, but for me, I know the reason why I speak English. It was because as a baby, when I was born, that was the language that was spoken around me. So that was the language that got into my subconscious mind. That was the language that became a part of my day to day. It was normal. If I was born in, let's say, Beijing, China, right, I'd probably speak perfect Chinese because it was around me. It's what I picked up. So a lot of our mindset, a lot of our beliefs, they were programmed into us by those who were around us. Whether they're good, bad, or indifferent, they simply are what they are because of the influences in our world. See, environment counts for a lot. There is something to be said about, things that we carry in our DNA. Sure. There's something to be said about, the nature that a person is born with. You look at a baby and you can see that little baby's like a grumpy old man. That little baby's like a happy person. Like, there are personality types. However, a lot of our habitual behaviors, and more so a lot of our beliefs, those are taught to us. We are learned. So with that being the case, environment matters huge. Now, what's interesting is we have the ability to override our environment, right? We do, with our conscious mind as that establishes itself, which doesn't happen until a person is around the age of between like 4, 5, 6, and 7. That's where the conscious barrier, the conscious mind starts to come into play. Before that, a little kid is like a sponge. That subconscious mind is wide open.
Just soaking in his environment.
Everything is coming in. Everything. This is why we see patterns repeat themselves. This is why we see when children come from homes of abuse, typically they get into relationships where they abuse in the same manner that they saw.
Yeah.
They hurt in the same way they were hurt. They mimic the same chains and patterns that happen in their early life until they take conscious awareness of it. And when they take conscious awareness of it, it doesn't change it immediately, but it allows them to implant something new. Because I wish I had a whiteboard right now, because I would bust out the whiteboard and actually show this and demonstrate it. However, the biggest thing to understand is most people typically interact with their world through their 5 senses. What is this? It's smell, taste, touch, hearing, and sight. This is how they go and they get information in the outside environment, and that information comes into the conscious mind. With that information, they create and they paint a picture in their head. So when that picture gets into the head, from there, it bubbles down into the subconscious mind. Once it's in the subconscious mind, here's the interesting thing. It has to express itself. Any information fed to the subconscious mind has no choice in the matter. It must express itself. And the way it expresses itself is through the only thing it's connected to, this physical body. It changes the vibration, the body's in. When the body's in a certain vibration, when it's in a certain feeling, right? Let's say like someone gets some negative thoughts in their head, and now they're in a upset mood. And now from that upset mood, they go out and they start talking to someone. They're going to start to talk in an upset tone. That upset tone is going to now upset the situation. Now that upset situation creates some upset results. Those upset results live inside of this external environment, which I'm picking up information from with my 5 senses, bringing more upset ideas into my mind, creating this negative feedback loop, this downward spiral of sorts. So people tend to become more and more like the environment that they're in. This is why we see crime-ridden areas start to produce more crime, right? It happens. Kids start to get around other people that are doing bad things. They continue to do more of the bad things they see, and they progress it even more. If they're taught about themselves, though, they learn that they have these internal mental faculties. They have the ability to imagine. They can actually, although their outer environment is a negative one, maybe a kid doesn't have the power to get up and walk away from a bad home, right? Maybe a mother who's in a terrible relationship doesn't have the money to get her kids up and leave that environment. So her external environment is what it is. However, her internal environment, her imagination to create a new picture, a new idea, a positive picture and a positive idea, that she has full control over. Her willpower to hold that idea still long enough in her conscious mind and impress it upon the subconscious mind until that can express itself through her body, through her vibration, through her tonality, through her actions, to then produce new results in the world. This is how we begin to change. but we need to be able to understand this. This is why Carnegie said they need to learn this instead. This is what the schools should be teaching. The schools should be teaching the kids that you're not a cup coming to us that's empty that we need to fill up. You're a cup that's full, and we need to teach you how to extract, how to pull out what's already in there. That's what we should be teaching people. So when we look at our environment plays a major role. However, we have the ability to change regardless of the environment until we get the ability to then work in harmony and have both the internal world and the external world moving in the same direction. That, now when we get that going together, oh my gosh, I mean, that's like Mario Kart. When you hit the little boosters on the ground, now we're moving with speed.
Yeah, dude, we could sit here probably for hours and have this conversation. We're at a business conference right now, it's starting to get noisy, so I want to ask you just a couple more things, man. Somebody asked a very interesting question today on the car ride here, and I was like, I got to ask this question on the podcast. What is more important, impact or profit?
That's huge. If I'm being asked to compare the two, I mean, I would say they have to work together. I would say impact, however, impact leads to profit. In my personal, that's my opinion, right? So someone could take it how they will. However, I believe there is no profit made without ever impacting other people, because all business, it's people. Every business, you can't tell me a single business that doesn't involve another human on the other side of the transaction. So if you learn to impact people in a positive way, you learn to give them more in use value than you take in cash value, the cash will always flow towards the person that can produce that sort of value, that can create that sort of impact. So that would be my short answer, because I mean, I can open up a can of worms there.
That's, and it's interesting to hear people's perspectives and takes on that, because it's like, it almost feels like there's not a right or wrong answer on that. I mean, obviously there could be a wrong answer, but it's very interesting to hear different perspectives on that, especially from high-level entrepreneurs like yourself, because a lot of people like to give the politically correct answer, but hearing people's perspective on that is, I think it's super important to put out there to the world for people to hear.
Yep.
So how can people get a hold of you, man? How can they find you?
Before I answer that, I do want to say one thing, though, with that. I believe profit's majorly important. I believe people it's their job to go out and become as wealthy as humanly possible. I truly, because if you want to impact more people, you need more resources. You need to be able to provide more value, and money allows you to produce more value. It is simply a store of value. That's all money is. Right. The problem is we look at money and we think of it as just green paper. Money is a representation. It's symbolic of value. So the person that has more money typically is the person that produces more value. So those two go hand in hand. Impact and profit, impact and value, impact and money go hand in hand. And I don't think you should have one without the other. Yeah. Now, if people are interested in getting a hold, getting connected, you could find me on Instagram at Mindset Marlon. You could find me on YouTube at Mindset Marlon. These sort of conversations are what I live for. So I appreciate you for having me here. I love what you're doing. I love the fact that you're at a conference, that you spent money to be here, that you're putting yourself in the right room, and you're taking time to produce these sort of episodes. I saw you sitting down with other guests earlier. I saw Keston on the podcast. And I was like, man, you've had Pace Moore be on the podcast. You've had Ryan Zolan. You're taking a lot of time, energy, and effort to get those people to open up, to talk about things that other people just may have never heard, but they need to. The information on this podcast, it can change people's lives. So I want to say thank you for doing that sort of work, man, because podcasts were something that were absolutely critical and still are critical to my development.
Especially educational podcasts, bro. I appreciate that. We're going to have to do a part 2, because like I said, this conversation, you go a lot deeper. And we could have went on for a couple more hours, because we didn't even really touch on the real estate stuff. This was more of like a mindset podcast, guys, which is what I wanted. I want people to understand the importance of mindset, because even as we become grown adults into our 20s, 30s, even 40s, I've met so many powerful entrepreneurs that are having a lot of success, achieving a lot of things, But when you have a conversation with them, you can tell that their mindset is just, it's not in the right place. And imagine where they would be if they had the right mindset. And so hearing guys like Marlon come on the podcast, give game, give perspective, give value on why mindset is so important. It's important for the audience, it's important for the world, it's important for the youth to hear. And we are 1000% going to do a part 2, but unfortunately got a little noisy here. The conference is about to end. So listen, guys, I hope you guys got a lot of value off what you guys just heard. Please like, share, subscribe, comment your favorite part. I promise you guys we'll do a part 2. Until then, I will see you guys on the next episode.
And Justin, can I do this as a bonus? For anybody that likes this video, that shares it, repost it on Instagram, and you tag me and you tag Justin, what I'll do is for the first 3 people that do that, I'll do an hour-long coaching session with you free of charge. I charge a lot of money for my coaching sessions, but I appreciate the value that you're putting out, so I want to give something back to your audience.
Yes, 1000%. Listen, you heard him. You better take him up on it. This dude is something serious. He's making impact out here, y'all. So make sure you do exactly what he just said. Until then, I'll see you guys on the next episode. Peace.